Hello, one and all. Welcome back to ArcheAge Inspiration. My name is Cilantro. Today's rolls are 1, 4, and 5. So let's see what we get here. Looks like Battle Rage, Sorcery, and Songcraft, making us into a Spellsword. Alright. So I decided to build the Spellsword in a fairly silly way. This build is pretty gimmicky, but highly enjoyable and very entertaining, and I actually discovered a new mechanic that I had never seen before. Two things, actually, which I'll get to here in just a minute. First, I'm going to go over the build really quickly. I'd like to say that if you wanted to take this class a little bit more seriously, I think it has some real possibilities here. I would focus a little bit more on the standard Battle Rage package and a little bit less on Songcraft, likely only taking Startling Strain and possibly Hummingbird Ditty. Really the only thing you kind of want out of Songcraft, but Startling Strain is quite an amazing ability, a 2-second stun, instant cast, with a cast time reduction, very powerful. So as far as this actual build goes, I went for more or less a standard sorcery package, nothing too crazy. I didn't quite have room for Arc Lightning or Chain Lightning, and I did go ahead and decide to get Meteor Strike, which will be very helpful for a certain combo, which I'll show off here in a little bit. Aronzib's Infusion, Magic Range Boost, Mana Flurry, pretty standard stuff. Didn't quite have the points to get Magic Precision, but criticals aren't really that important for this particular build. And out of Battle Rage, this is mostly a supplemental tree, not really a main tree, so you could focus more on Magic Attack. Lasso and Terrifying Roar are both very important for this slightly gimmicky build, and Triple Slash, Charge, Whirlwind Slash, all just general use. CC chain type options. You have a lot of slows that are available in sorcery, so I didn't feel the need to get Sunder Earth when you already have those, and you can just use the slow with Whirlwind Slash to actually incite a trip. So the two things that I found, one of which I can't unfortunately show you, but you just have to take my word for it. If you look at Freezing Arrow has the icicle symbol and the slow foot symbol at the top. That means that this spell inflicts both of those status ailments. If you look below, if the target already has the icicle symbol, it inflicts deep freeze on shield targets for 30 seconds. Basically, it's a very long duration sleep. I wasn't 100% certain about it, so I decided to test it. I really wish I had recorded it, come to think of it. So I had a friend of mine who also has sorcery cast Freezing Arrow at the same target that I had already shot a Freezing Arrow. And sure enough, it put the target to sleep just by casting 2 Freezing Arrows between 2 different people. So if you're ever out in the world and you and a buddy have the ability to drop on somebody, if you can coordinate and both of you shoot a Freezing Arrow, it's a ranged sleep that lasts for like 15 seconds in PvP. Quite amazing. The other combo is something that I've shown off in a few other videos here, but what I didn't show was an interaction that I did not actually realize existed. And that is that that the sleep that's inflicted by this deep freeze condition is not exactly the same as other sleeps. You can still actually do damage to a target that you have slept in this way. Unfortunately, it has to only be a certain type of damage, namely non-direct or damage over time damage. So what that means is that you can have Flame Barrier underneath the target, as well as using Ode to Recovery for its damage over time. If you look at the very bottom, it has a combo with Charm, where it inflicts damage over time. I actually did get some footage of this working in PvP, which I'll show here in a little bit, but just to show the sort of setup or proof of concept. Unfortunately, it's a little hard to get the freeze status effect implemented. There's 2 ways to do it by yourself. You can use Freezing Earth, which unfortunately only has a chance to snare. It has a chance to inflict the Snowflake debuff, essentially, which you will then be able to be comboed with Freezing Arrow. And the other chance at that is with Frigid Tracks. If you use Frigid Tracks, and then anything walks over those Frigid Tracks, they will immediately become frozen, and then you can combo from there. So there's 2 ways you can do this, as I mentioned. The first is to use Frigid Tracks, which I'm going to go ahead and do right now. I'm going to lasso in my friend the Mutated Flesh Golem here. And as soon as he gets hit by the Frigid Tracks, I'm going to freeze him. As you can see, he now has a 25, well, it was a 30-second deep freeze when I started. The other way involves using Freezing Earth. Unfortunately, it's not guaranteed to hit whenever you do it. Well, it'll hit, but it may not inflict the status debuff. If you see the Ice Shard, that means you're good to go. A follow-up, Frostbolt, Freezing Bolt, Freezing Arrow, if I knew the spell names, will actually inflict the deep freeze as well. Here's some footage of a friend of mine using this combo on me. He inflicts me with the Frozen debuff right here. And using some of the abilities in this build, namely the Firewall and the Song, the Ode to Recovery, while I'm charmed, he's able to inflict a large amount of damage, pretty much killing me actually, while the song is playing and while I'm still completely frozen. Really kind of crazy. So to explain it in a little bit greater detail, I'll take a moment to do the same thing to one of these poor flesh golems. So what happens is, first of all, let me get my insulating lens up, always important. Once the target has been frozen, they are subjectable to damage over time spells that don't directly sort of inflict or I think even really target somebody. I think that seems to be the difference. I did some testing between a normal sleep, whether it was lassitude or leech, and the deep freeze, and it seems to be functionally asleep, except for that one exception. So because you can just sort of lay Flame Barrier down, the Flame Barrier will inflict damage at all times. And likewise, the Ode to Recovery, once you've charmed somebody with your Startling Strain, Ode to Recovery's damage will tick on them and they won't be able to do anything about it. In addition, during the song duration, I would highly recommend using Bloody Shanty and Bulwark Ballad, as the Bloody Shanty will increase your damage, while Bulwark Ballad will reduce the target's defenses, enabling you to do even more damage. I'm really kind of shocked at how much damage this does, and while the combo itself is rather hard to set up, I feel if somebody could manage to make a way where it's more reliable, and that's exactly what I've been trying to test with this build, with Lasso and a few other things, it could really be quite devastating, especially in 1v1. I mean, you're hard CCing somebody for 10-15 seconds while inflicting damage to them. It's pretty incredible, actually. So anyway, just to show this off again, I'm going to use Frigid Tracks and pull this little guy in here. As soon as he lands on it, toss that. Make sure I'm not targeting here, just to make sure I don't accidentally break it. I'm going to toss my Magic Circle, that. We're going to get him charmed. And then while the charm is going, I'm going to sing my songs. And as you can see, his hit points are ticking down. He is still completely frozen. He'll occasionally have a pain animation, but it won't actually do anything. And I can sit here and sing to my heart's content for the next 8 seconds. One of the reasons I wanted to pick up Meteor Strike, though, is so that I could actually use that. And of course, I'm stupid and don't have it in my bar. That I could actually use that to break the sleep. And interestingly enough, you may have a chance even to refresh the sleep duration after a Meteor Strike. So just as an example, you'll use a Meteor Strike. Hopefully I won't get feared out of it here. And then after it lands, you use your Freezing Earth and then immediately follow up with another freeze. Pretty devastating stuff. Now I can just do the exact same thing. I can sit here and toss the fire, start my songs, and burn him down to nothing. So really a pretty incredible set of abilities. I mean, I guess if there's an elite mob that you really need to kill for whatever reason, I suppose it'd probably help if I actually charmed him so you'd get the effects. I suppose if there's some sort of an elite mob that you really need to kill for whatever reason, this is probably a way to do it. It's pretty nuts that this actually exists in the game. So that's really all I had to say about the gimmicky part of this build. Honestly, it's kind of silly, and as I mentioned earlier, if you really wanted to do something serious, you'd probably take more Battle Rage, but Terrifying Roar can help you set up some crowd control situations. I did do some experimenting with, triple slashing after a charge to knock somebody down, and then trying to use that time to get a Freezing Earth and a Freezing Arrow. If you have your Frigid Tracks available to you upon initiation, you can actually catch people off guard. Use Frigid Tracks, walk up, drop back slightly, and then lasso them into the Frigid Tracks, and then combo them as always. It would really work better if you were well coordinated with another person. As I mentioned earlier, 2 consecutive freezing arrows on the same target will guarantee a deep freeze as long as both of them hit. So from there, you're good to go. Not to mention the initial damage that freezing arrow does is not really that shabby. It's pretty decent. So that's really all I had to say about the Spellsword. Kind of an interesting and gimmicky build. Thanks for watching the video. Thanks for liking the video and subscribing, and I will see you next time.